The main problem regarding schedules for vaccination of all adults is harmonization. And harmonization between the schedules, between what are the important vaccines, what are essentials. And is harmonization important? Yes. Why? Because if in the absence of harmonization, trust in the added value of vaccines, in the efficacy of vaccines, is impaired. So people, if we do not have an harmonization schedule or an agreement in Europe regarding administration of vaccines in all adults, we increase the levels of uncertainty, we increase doubts in the community about the efficacy of vaccines, and this is very dangerous. So, where is missing harmonization? Where harmonization is missing? Is missing in the definition of what are essential vaccines, what are important and desirable but not essential. Where is the difference? And what should be the optional vaccines? So this is the first lack of harmonization. Is in terms of indications, in terms of relevance, no? And we have to come to an agreement in this for this proposal. The second data that is missing or it's not harmonized in among Europe is the intervals, the dose intervals. How often the vaccines should be administered. There is some diversity, some data that are different between countries, and probably this lack of harmonization occurs because documents like this one produced by FEAM or other equivalents analyzing the evidence are scarce, and we need evidence about or analysis of the evidence produced in observational studies in general, to agree on the frequency and intervals for those vaccine administration in adults. It's why this report is important, because it's one tool with information, high quality information addressing this proposal and increasing the awareness for this proposal. So harmonization, I mentioned harmonization as the main problem related schedules in Europe, but of course we also have not strictly related to schedules, but is related also, which is the lack of coverage. And this means that we need education of the community, and community I'm thinking mainly about physicians, more than the patients, of course, the community in general, individuals in general, but I think that education in the physician community is also important. And the third problem is that we have strong instruments in the European community addressing the safety of drugs in general, and also vaccines, including vaccines. I'm talking about the pharmacovigilance system, and talking about the the committees or within the European Medicines Agency. So we are putting, and this is correct, no? We are putting a lot of effort in addressing safety and monitoring safety, but we also need structures to measure the efficacy and to improve dissemination of the evidence related to efficacy. In summary, in terms of the schedules, we need harmonization in the criteria to define what is essential, important, desirable, or optional, or paid for free. No? The participation of the countries in terms of supporting the vaccination. We need harmonization in terms of schedules. For this, we need reports, evidence analysis, and agreements from a forum. The FEAM, with this report, is a pioneer in this field. And we also need a balance between instruments that address safety, including instruments, platforms, initiatives that address efficacy, as well as what is one of the suggestions of the report, that is provided to create a tool to measure coverage of adults, vaccination in adults. So this is an evidence, no? What we did was a review, and this is a general concern about for almost all vaccines. Probably for flu and pneumococcal vaccines, there is more evidence. Anyway, the quality of the evidence provided by studies include the clinical trials. I'm talking about clinical trials, no? So experimental studies with the drugs to allow clinical trials allow us to provide not only associations but causality, no? To address, to infer that this vaccine is protecting, and this is not an association, is the reason why protection appears, no? Emerges. So why this happened? So this problem happens because the way we design clinical trials. So clinical trials, to address causality in a clinical trial, you are supposed to try to control confounding variables and bias, no? So one confounding variables confounding variables include comorbidities, other diseases, diabetes, hypertension, dementia, whatever, all the comorbidities. If you design a clinical trial to answer the question, is this vaccine protecting against an infection, or is this vaccine safe in terms of short-term or long-term, or long-term is almost impossible to measure. But if you are addressing this question, the study design are supposed to exclude other diseases that can influence the outcome. It's why, since old people has more comorbidities, more diseases than young people, they automatically are excluded from the trials. So when we say old people, old or adults are excluded, are underrepresented in the is a very scientific reason. No, there is no is to try to have a clear relationship between cause and effect in terms of the vaccines. And how can we address this problem? To address this problem, we need study designs, clinical trial designs, probably academic ones or not, so promoted by other companies, designed to address the efficacy and the safety. Most of the clinical trials designed for vaccines are the primary endpoint is safety. Safety is something that is the most important point in vaccines. It's understandable to understand this, but we need clinical trials specifically designed to assess if this vaccine is safe in diabetic and hypertensive obese patients, for instance. Okay, so we need to design the study specifically to address this in a population. And in this case, we have two groups of adults, obese, hypertensive, and with diabetes, with and without the vaccine. And so the causality could be studied and the problems of comorbidity also addressed. So this is what is missing. When I refer in the chapter that the evidence provided by clinical trials is of low or moderate quality, I'm talking about quality in terms of what is the standard in evidence-based medicine. That is the confounding variables, the bias of the studies. So this is the main problem. From my point of view, the main reason why old people is not or adults are underrepresented in clinical trials is due to the study design, which is a proper and adequate study design. But we have to discriminate positively, and we need clinical trials addressing efficacy and safety in specific, more complex, more real old adults or adults, not old in general. There is, of course, we can also speculate that can be other reasons, like an over caution or some concerns about safety in old peoples, and why. So I prefer to start with young adults without with less fragilities and so on. But this is not. There are no evidence that any vaccine is more safety issues in adults or old adults than in children. So, but as I told you, this is something that we can reason, that you can speculate, that may be also influencing the under coverage of adult population, but it's not the strict reason from my point of view.